Is the October 4th, 2016 meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. I will now call the roll for attendance. Dave Delmonico. Here. Bob Garner is absent. Judy Keys.
Here.
Sam Strife.
Here.
Arthur Page.
Yep.
Kirk Turner is absent. And Howard Vogel.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum present this evening.
All right, 7:30, how about administrative, payroll, and/or vendor bills?
I believe we have some. Yes, I'd like to request your approval and authorization of the purchase of the signs, the no dumping, and the dog leash and cleanup signage for conservation
Yep.
areas. That will be coming out of Hunsley Hills management account. Actually, it might be some leftover grant money.
How many was there?
Well, I ordered a grand total of 5 5x6 signs, 5 7x9 signs, and 6 9x12 signs. The 9x12s are the no dumping one because that had the most text. This is the invoice looking for your initials. And I've installed those at the where Smith Lane starts in Ayers Park, the Hunsley Hills parking, the dog ones, Hunsley Hills parking area, and the Boxford Road Pingree Farm parking area, and over on Pingree Farm, over by the Georgetown Raleigh State Forest, the wooden sign that's there that says Pingree Farm Conservation Area, I installed signs there, and I'm working with the water department on text for a larger sign that will go by the access road that crosses the conservation area and goes to the filtration plant. The no dumping signage has currently just been installed in the Hunsley Hills parking lot where we had that issue, and I just thought to be conservative, I'd put it over in the Boxford Road parking area, the Pingree Farm Conservation Area, although no one has up to this date ever done anything, but figured the recommendation from the Raleigh Police Department was to have signage like that posted so nobody was unclear as to our expectations. I know this is going to seem silly, but I did have to purchase fasteners separately, so that's the invoice for stainless steel fasteners to put that up.
You need screws?
And for your initialing, that's the backup invoice.
Yeah, the screws.
Biggie.
Yeah, I purchased some more and for a little better quantity price, but that's what I could pick up
Right
away at the hardware store that's near where I reside. This is for the purchase of a new chair for Debbie,
Oh, yes, I saw it.
secretary. We were in need of getting new seating. Your initialing, this is the backup invoice for that. And finally, we needed some office supplies, mundane Post-it notes.
Oh. Sleep at the switch here. Sorry.
And that's the backup invoice for that. We have some minutes for consideration tonight.
Great.
Now, what I've passed out, now you've seen 3 sets of minutes. The only comments I received, and I had follow-up comments from Commissioner Turner. So what I've distributed for you tonight is that one set of minutes that has been recently edited, and it's just the yellow highlighted area that's been recently edited to provide further detail. There you go, okay.
Okay.
Refresh my memory, is that the property that the work's being done right now?
In order for me to comment after having looked at multiple sets of minutes today, I would respectfully request that first off you identify the meeting that you're talking about, and then you give me the page number for the section, which to comment. I'm not trying to be smart, I'm just saying, I looked at multiple sets today.
That's
Or this yellow, the yellowed out one?
That's
Okay.
out almost to Georgetown on 133.
Yeah.
So this is
He's
a different,
landscaper.
oh, he's,
The
okay.
landscaper. Yeah,
Yeah,
This is the one that the work's being
Just-
done
Yeah,
it-
closer to us.
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just
yeah,
trying
no,
to
this
read.
is
Yeah, no, no.
Get my brain.
Not a problem.
basically sort of across from Muddy Creek Animal Hospital,
Okay.
and before you get to Abavero's ABZ self-storage area.
Okay,
It had it had 2 different wood frame structures on the property which have been demolished and removed.
just trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw where you and Kurt were talking back and forth on this.
Yes. Yeah, so Debbie and I worked on this today to, not give you a transcript, but to provide the details that give the foundation for the decision-making. Commissioner Turner had very appropriate comments in requesting that.
Anybody have any questions in regards to these?
Good to me.
Based on my recollection, it's a while ago.
Judy?
I wasn't here, so
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
probably not qualified.
Sam,
Move to approve?
as written?
And this is the February 16th.
Correct.
Right, February 16th, 2016. Do I have anybody second that?
Okay.
Dave, second it. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So thank you very much. Now, I did not redistribute. There are 2 other sets that you were provided, sent to you via PDF. I hope you had an opportunity to look at them. Oops. Fluttering away. Chronologically, the most recent one is we worked on the minutes from the September 13th, 2016 meeting. Did you folks have an opportunity to review those?
Yeah.
I didn't get any emails with any questions or suggested edits.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable in entertaining a motion for,
I would
offering a motion? to
entertain
approve?
such motion if somebody would make it.
So moved.
Anybody want a second? Fine. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. And the other set was March 8th.
I was good with that. I think I emailed you on that one.
You may have.
Yeah.
Like I said, they kind of blended together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I forgot to email you on the second one.
I was only going to, if I had any question, problem, or,
Well, right, yes, yeah.
so I hear a motion to accept that one as written.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, those are minutes of March 8th. Thank you very much. So that takes care of 3. And before we get right to the quarter of hour for the first advertised agenda item, may I request permission to attend tomorrow morning the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission Mayors and Managers, DPW Directors, Stormwater Collaborative Meeting, which I've been attending these on a fairly regular basis. This is in Haverhill at the offices of Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. It usually consists of predominantly DPW directors from their respective towns that have most of the responsibilities for stormwater implementation and compliance, with one or two agents such as myself that also have overlapping. Lots of times Pat Snow, the highway surveyor, accompanies me because of the implementation aspect of stormwater compliance.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. For a brief time until my senior service person comes in, the office won't be staffed, but we have a notepad there for people to
So
record.
it's gonna be first thing in the
And
morning?
there'll be a sign
Yeah.
posted that'll say when someone is in the office. So it won't be totally without coverage. I usually am able to return between 10:30 and 11. And Jean comes in at 10. Okay, so, thank you.
428 Newbury.
And here's the legal ad, if you wish to read that.
This brings us to our 7:45. And this is a legal notice, Raleigh Conservation Commission, with accordance to the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended in the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw. A public meeting will be held on Tuesday, October 4th, 2016, 7:45, at the Room 5 Town Hall Annex on 39 Central Street to consider the request for determination of applicability for the application filed by Sandy Patigan for proposed removal of existing septic fields, construction of 2 new leaching fields, possibly within a 200-foot riverfront area of Bachelor Brook at 428 Newburyport Turnpike, map 18, parcel 3, lot 1 in Raleigh, Mass. Go ahead.
For the record, Mike DeRosa and Sandy Patrick, representing Sandy on the RDA application. Well, Brent sets this up. Essentially, all the work is outside the 200-foot riverfront area, so I think really the purpose was to have Brent walk the wetland boundary with Tyler from our office and just make sure the line was good, to make sure that the 200 feet was accurate, and I think that worked out. And here's the plan. Well,
Yeah, it's coming up in just a
it's coming
second here.
But essentially, we're just moving the septic system right up outside the 200 foot, the wetlands way down here, and so that's all we're doing. So
Was the
we're
system-
requesting
Was the system a failure, or you just?
no, just relocating to open up some more upland. So that was it. We're just asking the commission to make a negative determination that there's no adverse impact to the wetland.
Brent usually has a comment.
Yeah, so, well, the commission does have a comment memo, if you
Yeah.
have, you realize I just did this a short while ago, so you may want to just glance over it right now. So I'll just briefly summarize how the review decision-making process in evaluating this proposal developed. So the applicant submitted a plan that showed their new proposed subsurface sewage disposal systems with the erosion control basically installed on the 200-foot riverfront boundary, 200-foot riverfront area of Batchelder Brook. That particular resource area and that delineation of riverfront had not been previously covered or reviewed by any submittal to the Raleigh Conservation Commission. So therefore, In technical terms, the depiction of 200-foot riverfront until verified and approved by the commission is just an opinion, not a legal boundary. And so, as Mr. DeRosa specified with his associate Tyler Ferrick, we reviewed where the mean annual high water of Batchelder Brook was delineated, which happens to be on the land that was recently gifted to the town of Raleigh as a conservation area. But the projection proved accurate from that delineation. So therefore, the work that is proposed on this plan, both the installation of the new sewage disposal systems as well as the abandonment, and I guess you dig it up and you refill the area with structural fill for whatever you plan to do later on. Those activities are therefore outside of any regulated area under the Wetlands Protection Act or the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. So the comment memo and recommendation to you tonight is a little different than we've seen before, but it specifically advises the commission that you may wish to issue a negative determination option number 4, which states the work described in the request is not within an area subject to protection under the Act, including buffer zone. Therefore, said work does not require the filing of a notice of intent unless and until said work alters an area subject to protection under the Act. And because the town has a wetlands bylaw, we have and number 6, which states the area and or work described in the request is not subject to review and approval by the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. This is, of course, all contingent upon appropriate erosion control, which is depicted on the plan, and we also know that the applicant has great and vast experience and hires knowledgeable contractors to do the projects on his property, and therefore we can be relatively assured that the erosion control will be installed correctly.
And you can come look.
Anybody have any questions? It was pretty cut and dry. I'm willing to entertain a,
I just have one.
okay.
And it's only because you mentioned this is associated with the removal of the other stuff. You
Well,
mentioned
they-
structural
Once they
fill,
put the new system in, they'll be
Yeah.
able to abandon the
other
system that
ones.
they've been using.
but you mentioned structural fill. Is that
I'm
just?
making a presumption that usually when you dig up a septic field, because there has been human waste discharged in there, there usually is some type of special handling considerations, and you need to take that dirt somewhere other than just
Yes.
go dump it on another portion of your property.
Yeah.
The experts tell us that, and the plan is, that we put the new fields in, commission them,
Yeah.
make sure they work right.
Yeah.
And then we open the existing
Existing,
field
yep.
up so that the air can circulate better. And then over
Dry
the
it out,
winter,
basically.
over the winter, it will clean itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And best case scenario, we've got sand that we can use for some other purpose. Worst case scenario, we have sand that we truck away,
Right.
and it doesn't smell to high heaven while we
Right.
do it. But basically, the system is almost on top of the ground, the existing ground. So what we'll be doing is removing it and putting a building there.
So that is the key. The use of the word structural and fill.
Doesn't really
Doesn't
apply.
apply,
Yeah. Thank you. That's what I wanted to make sure.
Well, I was presupposing here too, that if they do plan a usage and they do have to erect some structure or something over there.
Yeah, I
they'll
get
have
it,
to
and
use
that's what I'm
whatever-
trying to,
Yeah,
I'm not trying to split hairs, I just wanna make sure. that-
no, that was,
We haven't established the elevation of the building, but
Uh-huh.
I haven't really discussed it with Brent from a stormwater management point of view. But it's looking like the elevation of the new building will be at 77, which is the same elevation as building 3A, and which translates into, we're going to get down to virgin material under that septic system, probably lowered another foot,
Yeah, okay.
all right, to get to where we want to be. That's the plan right now. All subject to change, of course, but
Yeah,
that's the
I mean, the main
current
point
plan.
is, you're not putting structural stuff,
Well, my understanding of this is,
demolition.
yeah, all we're really doing here tonight is just kind of establishing that everybody agrees where that 200-foot line is.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. I'm fine with everything else.
Do I hear a motion?
So, I'll
For
move.
Negative determination. A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Ladies.
you.
See you. Good to see you. Take care. Thanks.
Oh, that's okay. Oh, here's the big one.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, for the next agenda item, there is not a memo.
Okay, let me just
for-
read it from the,
Yeah, if you just want wish to read it from the.
okay, this brings us to
agenda.
our 8 PM, which is a request for the amended order of conditions, number 63-250-414 Havel Street, map 14, parcel 34, lot 1, John Coughlin trustee, Gateway Realty Trust of 1997, with the proposed installation of an irrigation well to site development activities possibly within the DEP approved groundwater protection area zone 2.
For the record, Mike DeRosa, DeRosa Environmental, filing this modification to the existing order of conditions for Gateway 2 Trust. Mr. Coughlin would like to put an irrigation well on the property to help irrigate the green spaces that are there once the project's complete. I've highlighted it on this plan, and you can see it there. Brent will zoom in. But here's the location of the proposed well here, with a 100-foot radius, which is typical for any wells. That's what we have to keep away from septic systems and everything else, because that's sort of the safe radius around these wells. This is the 400-foot radius from the water supply well, which is the Zone A. And we're a total of over 940 feet away from that well. Two things. There's been a lot of discussion before tonight with Board of Health, and I guess Mr. Coughlin had informed me this afternoon that they have received a permit from the Board of Health. I haven't seen it yet, but he said that they have it, so the Board of Health appears not to have an issue with the issuance of that. The main thing on irrigation wells is that they don't run 24/7. They work for an hour, a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours at night. Most of the day, 20 to 22 hours a day, they're not operating. They're only there to irrigate the areas. The commission would have interest in this wetland to the, I guess that's the east, towards Route 1, which is a wetland area here, and we're creating an expansion of that for the project as part of the order of conditions. So, there might be some some interest in impacts to that. But again, we're right at about the 100-foot radius. This, in particular, this aquifer is a very, I don't know if you've been by the site, but it's like working on a beach. The water falls on it and just goes right into the ground. It's a very sandy, very gravelly aquifer. In those kinds of aquifers, when you draw down the water table when you're pumping, the radius of influence is not very great because the recharge is so good that the water, it's probably done. Is this my
And
number?
the storage capability.
Mr. Coughlin's here. This is the, apparently a copy of the permit that's been signed by Board of Health, so that might help. And so you have very rapid recharge into these wells, so there's not a very great radius of influence. And that's probably why that public supply well pumps so well and is so clear. And as Brent has informed me, water quality is impeccable. So it's a very important well as far as the town's concerned, and we are sensitive to that. Our feeling, though, is that the irrigation well, because of the time that it's operating, which is very briefly during the day, that it's not going to have, it could never have an adverse impact to that well or even to this wetland. So we're here for questions. You want to add anything else?
Brent, has everybody received a copy of this letter?
I believe all the commissioners have. Mary Beth Weiser, the Water Department Superintendent, is in attendance tonight. I don't know if she would like to read her memo.
I didn't bring it
Or,
with me.
I've got it right here, Mary.
and I can read it.
Oh, okay,
Anyway, we
if you
should
don't mind, yeah.
enter it into the record. So it's dated September 20th, 2016, to Arthur Page, Chairman, Conservation Commission, from Mary Beth Weiser, Water Superintendent. Regards irrigation well proposed for 414 Haverhill Street. My office was notified that there is a request for a modification to an order of conditions for 414 Haverhill Street, Mass DEP file number 63-0650, submitted to your office on September 19th, 2016, to install an irrigation well. I would like to respectfully request to the Conservation Commission that further hydrogeologic data and proof that this irrigation well will have no impact on well number 2, period. Well number 2 is located at 435 Haverhill Street, which is directly across the street. In addition, I would like to request wetland monitoring requirements for water withdrawals to protect wetlands within the recharge area from desiccation or lowering of groundwater table that will affect the quantity of water available for well number 2, period. The proposed irrigation well is within the Zone 2, which is the recharge for well number 2. I would also like to request that, must be a duplicate here, withdrawals be measured by means of a flow meter and conservation restrictions be included to operate that well if it is installed.
Yeah.
Conservation restrictions be included to operate that well if it is installed. Okay. I am extremely concerned for the potential impact on the public water supply to meet fire flows and peak demand, period. There is a potential public health and safety concern, period. Below is what I feel applies to this production irrigation well, period. This well will be a large groundwater withdrawal well and will impact the quantity and quality of well number 2. Then cites 4.11 Municipal Water Supply Protection District, 4.11.1.1. This section is intended to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the community by preserving the quality and quantity of existing and potential sources of drinking water. 4.11.4.3, the Board of Appeals may grant a special permit under section 4.11.3.2, if the board makes the following determinations. Subletter A, that the proposed use will not have a material adverse impact on the quality or quantity of existing or potential sources of groundwater in the Municipal Water Supply Protection District. I would respectfully request you deny this modification to the order of conditions, period. I respectfully urge you to not allow the installation of this large groundwater withdrawal well, period. Thank you for your consideration of my request. This was copied to the Board of Water Commissioners, the Board of Selectmen, and the Zoning Board. So I'd like to just review for the commission in regards the field inspection or site visit that Mr. DeRosa and I, Monday I believe it was, wasn't it? Monday at 1 o'clock. Yeah. So the site is under development, and this is sort of representing infrastructure that hasn't been put in place at this point in time, but the intention is for this well to be installed in an island that is in the parking area, and therefore probably 50 to 60% of the diameter circle is going to have this on top. What is slightly concerning is the fact that the wetlands replication area, which is currently been seeded but hasn't been planted, is adjacent to this, as well as the existing bordering vegetated wetlands, and it's within 100 feet. As you can see by that wetlands flag, I can't quite see the 08 or something there. And so in reaching out to other agents for commissions that have dealt with similar situations, the recommendation that I received from other professionals was that you have a pump test performed and you have a series of monitoring wells installed extending from the center of where the well's installed and extending towards the wetland resource area, so you can understand what the zone of influence is based on pumping from said well. It don't really have much more data than that, but my recommendation to the board is that some type of criteria in regards to what the intended withdrawals would be from this well, what the hydrogeologist who could possibly comment on what the depth of this well is going to be by understanding from looking at a community confidence report of 2010 produced by the Water Department for the town of Raleigh. It gave 50 feet as the depth of well number 2, although that 50 foot was used in a sentence that lumped together all the active well fields, well station 3, well field 5, and well number 2 here. So my understanding from building the filtration plan is that well field 5 is actually 35 feet in depth. Do you know what the actual depth of well 2 is?
It's not 50 feet.
It's
like
not 50?
40, 42.
Okay, so the 50 foot was just an expression of what the maximum depth was. Okay. So there's, the commission certainly should seek to gain some information in regards to this particular installation, what the hydrogeology is of the area, consideration that I think Mr. DeRosa was telling me from his experience that a pumping test is like done for 3 days or something.
Depends on the test.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there needs to be some attention given to this and some generation of some data so the commission's decision on this can be well-founded, not to make a pun there, but it kind of seems though that the well needs to be installed in order for you to then make any type of determination.
Not just that well, but at least 3 to 4 others.
Well, I'm not talking about monitoring wells, I'm talking about a well that would actually be for extraction. But we have no specific information though in regards to this, other than the location. We don't know what the intended depth is of this.
Well, you know,
Excuse me, maybe I can save the board a lot of time. We put irrigation wells in all our properties because we like to keep our properties the way we like to keep our properties. Why don't I just withdraw, and we can save ourselves a lot of trouble and a lot of time here tonight.
Probably money too. I mean,
Oh, it's gonna be.
This is-
nice.
would be a lot
I
of
think
money.
where we're
I've
going
done
with
many
this,
pump tests.
I
Trust me,
know
it's gonna
the
be
last
very
time I
expensive.
came before the board, when we had the 406 property, when they thought we had groundwater, and we do have monitoring wells, we put one in there for you.
Right.
We spent about close to $100,000 in monitoring wells and
Oh, yeah.
everything else. This is an irrigation well to make the property and the lawn look good. There's all I was trying to accomplish here. And it's, where this is going is not where the board wants it to go or where I want it to go, so.
I feel comfortable with that. Thank you.
Why don't I just, in fairness to everybody, just take it off the table and the
Well,
project,
you can still put irrigation in, but,
yeah. And we'll
Oh,
use the town's water.
right, yeah,
Okay.
because, yeah.
All
No,
right.
thank you very much.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, and thank you. Sorry to trouble you on this thing.
You've got,
Probably
need
the
a
better
letter from
move.
Yes, I do need a letter
I'll send it tomorrow.
to
Yeah.
put in the file, just to
Yeah.
appropriately close it out.
No worries. Thank you, everyone.
Just interject another thing that concerns this board. Would you talk with Thady, because I know I would have the opportunity to see him
Oh,
tonight.
yeah, okay.
He has one of his assistants researching all the adjoining deeds. He should have them together, he hopes, within the week. If everything closes, we're gonna be on our way home.
Okay.
Okay, and I will
Thank you
keep
for
you
that
informed
update.
on. Thank you.
Yeah,
very
thank you.
much.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for reading my letter.
yes, thank you for giving us a letter. Yeah, it's, I feel a lot safer.
We give everyone a fair opportunity to address concerns. I realize this is gonna sound perfunctory or whatever, but would the commission please entertain a motion to approve,
Yes, I was thinking
to
about
accept the
yeah.
withdrawal of this
So moved.
request for an amendment?
Second.
Set, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Yeah.
I've done hundreds
Really?
of pump tests.
Yeah.
3-4 days.
Well, I was thinking about this since,
Around
ever
the
since I
clock.
got the letter. I said, geez, why not just?
Up against rivers, although I have no doubt that the storage capacity of the aquifer could probably handle this,
But
it's gonna be way over
Yeah,
priced
I
for
mean,
that.
you lose that well in
You
the town.
won't,
that's what I'm saying.
you want
that's a
water
big,
from,
but
from
I actually had
grass.
more concerns that it was gonna desiccate
Yeah.
the nearby wetlands that we
True.
were
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
having.
Probably
having
the
it
wetlands will never want to get in their
replicate
life.
since it's within 100
Except
feet.
for in this, type of a year,
you got it. This could
This
be,
is
this
not
could be
bad,
an
yeah.
art.
it could have an effect, but that aquifer is very,
It's a good one.
well, it's bounded by the river
Yeah.
on both sides, and I guarantee well two is pumping like it's probably a 6 foot, a 6 to 12 inch casing with 35 feet down.
Yes.
There's a
It's
lot of
it's
water
big
there.
casing, yeah.
There's a lot of water there.
Okay.
15, close enough.
We're pretty close. Legal ad.
All right, this brings us to our 8:15. This is a legal notice from the Raleigh Conservation Commission. In accordance with the Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, public hearing be held on Tuesday, October 4th, 2016, at 8:15 at Room 5, Town Hall Annex at 39 Central Street, in order to consider a notice of intent for application being filed by Roger LeBlanc for proposed construction of a single-family dwelling, driveway, utilities, sewage disposal system, grading, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands, and the DEP approved groundwater protection area, Zone 2, at 151 Boxford Road, Map 2, Parcel 28, Raleigh, Mass.
Now, Mr. Chairman, prior to opening the hearing,
Mhm.
we need to discuss, in my working with Deborah, our new secretary, and came across the fact that the wetlands bylaw fee submitted for this application was deficient. So,
We need that, yeah.
well, we just need now, Mr. Bill Manuel of Wetlands and Land Management is representing Mr. LeBlanc. I believe he wants to address the commission in regards to this situation. And
Bill Manuel, Wetlands and Land Management. Brent brought that to my attention this evening. It's not a problem. I do quite a few notice of intent filings, not in Rowley. I wasn't aware that the Zone 2 was actually a protected resource area. I didn't calculate the 25 cents per square foot. So, talked with Brent. I thought it was appropriate we come tonight, open up the hearing. Brent and I have already had a site visit. We will certainly calculate that fee and submit it.
Yeah.
So, thank you for bringing that to my attention. Do you want these abutter notices, or do I hold on?
yes, please. No,
Yeah,
I would like those. I just wanted to get that
Yep.
particular aspect going, and then so with the
Okay, so this
with
is
the applicant's commitment to tender the appropriate calculated fee.
Yep.
We can proceed with opening the hearing.
So this is a notice of intent for a new dwelling at 151 Boxford Road. It's a vacant lot. And it's, as Brent mentioned in his comments, it's pretty much, it's an overgrown ag field probably. It's coming back as successional growth. It's got a lot of bittersweet, honeysuckle, white pine, poplar, that kind of vegetation. Pretty thickly vegetated. The commission allowed soil testing on this lot last December. Soil testing was good. Soils are fairly sandy out there. And we now show a proposed dwelling here, and with a driveway accessing off of Boxford Road. There'll be a on-site septic system in this location. The septic system is outside the buffer zone. The house would be serviced by municipal water. We show erosion controls that go around the work area, and that would be the limit of work. The plans do not show your 25-foot no disturb zone. We will add that. And Brent and I talked about adding some other features when we were on our site walk. We talked about adding an infiltration trench along the edge of the driveway here. The ground, the lot is virtually flat, but we do get a little bit of sloping in this area, and we thought that an infiltration trench along the edge of the driveway would be appropriate to make sure anything coming off the site here and from the driveway gets a chance to go into the ground and get some treatment before it runs into the wetland here. I saw Brent's comments about demarcating the no disturb zone with kind of post and rail posts or something acceptable to the commission, and that's kind of standard practice to monument that no disturb zone. We talked about there appears to be an area of encroachment of a gravel driveway into the property in this location. That encroachment occurs within the 25-foot no disturb zone. We talked about how we would work with the neighbors, pull that back and revegetate that area so that at least we're recapturing some of the 25-foot no disturb zone that is on the 151 property. But beyond that, it's fairly straightforward, and answer any questions that you have.
I usually like to ask, right, what other than what the...
Well, the memo's fairly comprehensive here, so let me just touch upon some high points. First off, in regards to the discussion about infiltration of the driveway runoff, there's two reasons for that. Not just the fact that the property gently slopes and will continue to slope after development towards that wetlands area, but that section of Boxford Road does not have any rural country drainage ditch. And so anything from the driveway doesn't even have the opportunity to make it into a conveyance that then would partially slow it down and allow it to infiltrate. So by installing a crushed stone infiltration trench, that would just intercept all the runoff coming from the impervious surface and get it to infiltrate. So there's a list of some other things. The main thing of concern during the site visit is we discovered that the plan that was submitted utilizes a delineation from 2008 from Wetlands Preservation, Inc., not Mr. Manuel's more recent wetlands delineation, and so that needs to be corrected.
Right, we assume that was sort of a CAD thing, they might have turned
Yeah,
off one layer
yeah.
and turned on the other.
For all we know, Eastern Land Survey Associates had that, and
Right.
that just ended up being what was put on the output here.
But we'll say that the boundary was pretty much determined by a pretty good break and slope all around there, so I
Yeah,
was bumping into some of the old flags as I was going, I don't think it's.
we
gonna
found the
change
old
much.
flags and
But
so
it's important to get the right flags on the plan.
well, yes, and then because the restricted no cut, no disturbance zone needs to be projected from that, obviously the 100-foot buffer zone. Normally, if we only had those two things involved, that would be driving the calculation of the wetlands bylaw fee, but in this case, where the entire property is in the zone 2, as well as also being priority habitats of rare species and estimated habitats of rare wildlife. So there has been a submittal to natural heritage, but those are also regulated wetland resource areas that would also trigger their contribution to square foot of area that was proposed to be disturbed and developed for the calculation of the bylaw fee. Today, in looking at the plan, something that I hadn't discussed with Mr. Manuel, and therefore he hasn't had an opportunity to take that back and discuss it with Mr. LeBlanc, the applicant, is the fact that where we're going to have possible some removal of gravel and some replanting in this area, where we also believe that the no cut, no disturbance zone is going to extend across there, thereby cutting off access going into the rear of the property here. So my feeling was to suggest to the commission to possibly consider that that entire area back there would be no cut, no disturb, and left vegetated. Obviously, a future property owner, if they wish to apply to the commission for changing that, if things change and they wish to somehow put a proposal in to go into that area for some type of development activity, but the rear of the parcel is not going to be readily accessible by anyone utilizing and occupying that residential structure.
Right, right now, there's no proposal to do anything back there, and so long as, I think, as long as it wasn't a condition in perpetuity, it allowed a future owner to come back before the commission, seems to be a reasonable solution.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, again, the no cut, no disturbance area is a condition in perpetuity, and they would have to get through that to get to the rear of the property.
But nevertheless, there's some potential
So-
land back there, so we just don't wanna lock it,
Right.
Right.
that out in perpetuity.
So if we just put, say, a vegetation management restriction on, you can apply to have anything changed.
Right.
Even if the commission declares a no cut, no disturbance zone there in perpetuity, one property owner always has the ability to apply to the commission to have that lifted. They would obviously have to submit some type of argument supported by whatever the current regulations at the time are, propose either replication or something else, but everybody is always free to, no matter we say in perpetuity, we know, I mean, a huge meteor can come down and hit the property, and, you know, our protecting that area is no cut, no disturb is going to be worthless, so.
Yeah, it just, in experience, I know when that sort of condition goes on an order of conditions, this commission, it may be 10 years and no one on this commission may be around to remember it. That's a pretty high hurdle to overcome when you come back in front of the commission, so.
However, in 10 years, the rules could have changed too, in your favor.
Well, but,
So-
But nevertheless, the rules are what they are now, and I'd
But we
rather
can
have it
just
than
have
we
it
deal
grass
with getting through the no
vegetated.
disturb zone rather than put a.
well, it's
No-cut
not, there's no
perpetuity.
development activity proposed there at all, so why don't we just leave the normal 25-foot no-cut, no disturbance zone in place?
Yeah,
That would
I
have to
prefer
be
that.
dealt with
Yeah.
anyway to gain access to
Yep.
that rear
It's
area.
smoother that way, just,
So,
Yep,
I
thank you.
didn't mean to introduce any complications to the discussion, so.
all right, now,
Appreciate it.
what can we do tonight without the fee?
Well, actually, we can't, because the fee calculation is really
Based
dependent
on
upon
those
the person who's
delineations.
stamped the plan and getting the correct BBW delineation on there. I believe if we handle this the same way we recently just handled the long extended
Based on-
discussion with Brighter G Solar Project,
Yeah.
is that the commission, if you wish to engage a motion tonight, that you will move that this hearing will not effectively close
Right.
until such time as the bylaw fee calculations supported by the appropriate professional doing the calculation and extending the payment, as well as the revised plan getting review and approval through the office. So I was able to provide you with a relatively finite and distinct list of items on
Yeah.
here. So they're pretty discrete, and the fee calculation is pretty discrete, because basically it's everything within the boundary line and the limit of work for the project, because that is all regulated resource area. So that square footage then will drive the calculation of the 25 cents per square foot. So if the commission feels that all the different options and things have been discussed, and my memo addresses with its distinct list of items, if that,
All right, let me just interrupt here, Brent, and just see if anybody has anyone
Sure.
questions. No, Dave, you're all set with that?
Yeah, okay.
I'm
You just-
just wondering how long all that's gonna take.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question.
Not very long at all. The list is pretty clear.
You
There's
gotta get the drawing
That's fine.
revised.
It might take a week, 10 days to work through the engineering process, but it's not gonna take
So
very
it'll
long.
take a couple of weeks. So-
We normally
So it could be done before our next meeting.
yeah, we normally put a 14, we
Yeah,
normally ask
14
folks to
days.
have this
Yeah.
resolved within 14 days, is just a normal time period.
Right. And you're not gonna have a
If it
problem.
doesn't, it just returns, it
Yeah.
returns to the agenda of the next
Yeah, next
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You okay with that, Sam?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Can't do
just
anything
work
else
with
it.
him,
Sure.
you know, we'll,
Do I hear such a motion?
Well, no, wait, before you
Wait.
do that,
Yeah, yeah.
check
Okay.
and see if there's anyone in the audience that wishes to comment to the commission about this application.
Anybody in the audience have a question in regard to this?
I had one quick, so our other alternative would be to just have a motion to continue, right? So those are the alternatives, either
Yeah.
do as suggested, or
Yeah.
a motion to continue. Just want to be clear,
Seems to me with Sam's calculations, this would probably speed it up by a week or
by
so.
a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, that's was,
But I feel all right doing it, based on what Brent's gone over. And
I wouldn't make the recommendation if the items weren't relatively discrete, and there doesn't seem, other than our just discussion about the rear portion of the property, which we resolved to everyone's satisfaction.
So what you're saying is that our motion would incorporate all of these things being fixed.
all 9
Yes.
things, yes.
yes,
Yes.
And
the fee.
fees,
And
and
the
the
fee and the plan.
the corrected plan.
he'll just work with Brent.
And at that point in
At that
time,
point.
the
Instead of coming to
the
another
hearing
hearing.
stays open
Yeah.
until
Till,
those points in the bylaw fee issue are satisfied, the plan revision meets the office approval.
Yeah.
And at that point, then I would be able to proceed with issuance of an order.
Reasonable?
Less red tape.
And this
Are we ready?
covers the,
I don't know.
that area of intrusion.
Yes, there's gonna be a requirement for the gravel to be removed and some native plant species to be put in place. Depending upon the square footage of that area, which I can scale out, we're probably talking somewhere like a dozen to 16 saplings and herbaceous seeding.
A dozen to 16 in that area would be pretty tight, but we'll work it out.
Well,
If we turn our back on it,
a couple of tree saplings
Okay,
and then
it'll gain on
you know,
it.
yeah, like I said,
Fair
the
forward,
bittersweet
but-
is just gonna cover it, so.
Yeah.
We have to uphold our standards, you
Yep.
understand.
Yep.
All right, now do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Somebody want to second it?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. I hope we've saved you some time.
Good luck.
Oh, time is money.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were here for that.
Any support from one that spoke? There was support from one that spoke.
Yeah. I gathered from the body language that that's what it was, just their support.
Yeah.
But I also got nervous, and they said, oh, go.
What?
I got nervous. I said, oh, this is gonna be a midnight night.
Oh,
Nah.
Bill Manuel
Yeah,
was here the night of the younger in his costume.
yeah. Okay. Is that part of the meeting?
I don't have a lot in the crate, I'm kind of sad, so it's okay. Slides down. Okay. So we didn't end up receiving a certificate of compliance request, which is why I sent a revised agenda out that had that particular item on it canceled. I also want to explain that times are not being put on there because I was advised by the town administrator that if you commit to putting times on there, as helpful as that is to some people, for administrative items, that possibly locks you in to having to take that item at least at that time, if not later, but not earlier, so that removes some of the flexibility from being able to deal with administrative items that lots of times don't have anyone in attendance. So trying something a little different here, so not to make you uncomfortable, but
And that still holds up as far as what they recommend?
yeah, it all depends upon your interpretation of how of the agenda, the reason for it being posted and everything or whatever. I mean, that's a pretty technical interpretation that you need to take it up at that time or later and not earlier. So, but there was no I just thought I'd try it, and it didn't have a lot of different things. And
Yeah, I can
I'll still-
understand these ones in particular because,
these things are mostly reports to the commission, so
Right.
it's not like there's going to be a representative who will want to know when they get here, type of thing. In the future, if I have the certificate of compliance requests, sometimes do have people that wish to be in attendance, so
Yep.
I may, put times on those. But so the status reports, permits and enforcement. Prospect Hill Access Roadway, the Raleigh Water Department for 124 Haverhill Street. That's really just to inform the commission that that project has started. They installed erosion control at the base that you can see from Haverhill Street, right where you pull off for the state Prospect Hill Park. But then they're working up from the lower part, so they were going to, as they moved along, do either the erosion control or put in the swales or whatever. I actually haven't stopped by there recently, but that will hopefully be one of the things I do tomorrow. DeStefano Landscaping, I'm not sure whether I copied the commission and provided any papers on that. You may have seen an email about it or not. It just, it happened rather recently and rather quickly. Daniel DeStefano purchased what had been a machine shop that's kind of opposite where Skip's Variety is. And in driving by last Wednesday in the context that I was taking Thursday off, and I've requested Thursday off again, I noticed that the driveway coming down to Haverhill Street, that they had cleared all the scrubby vegetation and they were loaming it to seed it. They had loamed and seeded this side and grass was already germinating, but there was material making its way into the paved driveway and making its way out onto Haverhill Street, and there was no erosion control installed at the base of slope. So I entered onto the property at about 4:30 on Wednesday, knocked on all the doors. Even though there was vehicles there, they were apparently all out on jobs and at job sites. There's no one physically present there. But since it was all open or whatever, I could see that there was also earthwork had been conducted in the back here. There were stumps that had been trees removed out of the ground. This was the original proposal that was submitted to the Zoning Board of Appeals. It showed no expansion of parking area or anything back there, but the property owner had undergone clearing, and right to the back here had put an earthen berm about 5 to 6 feet high that was not stabilized and didn't have any erosion control at the base of the slope. They were rip-wrapping and stabilizing the side here, but not the very rear. They had apparently built this earthen berm. I don't know whether they intend to plant the top of that and then have it be a screen as well as sound deadening, because there's like apartments or something in the back there, and there's a parking area, so it's very open. No real understory, in fact, hardly any width to where there would be an understory either. So knowing Mr. DeStefano, I had his phone number from past contact with him and commenting on this project, and within a day, he had the erosion control
Yeah, I saw that.
installed.
I saw the pictures.
Yeah, I saw
Brett
it.
showed me the pictures and he did an excellent job.
Yeah,
I
did
didn't fault
overnight,
him,
I
but-
saw that.
There wasn't, it didn't generate anything in terms of citing him or anything else like that, where he took steps to immediately clean up the little bit of stuff that had gone out on Haverhill Street. And actually, I went by there yesterday and they were sweeping the driveway again, so.
Place looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's
I
gonna
mean-
improve that immensely, but
Totally,
the
yeah.
point is the point is in the town of Raleigh, when you have a site that slopes down to a
Down to the
major
road.
highway like that, you need to take appropriate steps where you have erodible materials, loose soil and dirt. There's also the safety factor. I mean, I did copy the Raleigh police chief on my initial communication to him, because I just wanted to let them know that I was aware and addressing and having the property owner take care of the material that was possibly getting into the road that might get kicked up and
Had we had a
hit
bad
somebody's
rainstorm, it could have been a
windshield.
different.
Yeah, yeah. Again, just being precautionary, not trying to, you know, quote unquote, turn them into the police department. That wasn't the intent. And they did take appropriate and quick responsive steps to get everything, get all the erosion control in place. So unless there's any further questions about that, I'm going to consider that item sufficiently addressed.
I should think so, yeah.
And request for comments. And actually, the selectmen had an earth removal permit application from Mr. Coughlin for 414 Haverhill Street, Gateway 2 Realty Trust. Even though I had to generate those comments and turn them in to the Board of Selectmen last night, I wanted to let you folks know you have in the past delegated authority to me to respond to these requests for comments without necessarily coming to the commission. This is a prime example why if we had to wait to come to the commission for this, we would have missed the input. Both the planning board and I commented. The planning board had some good comments to the Board of Selectmen. I specifically let the Board of Selectmen know that we had, again for the 414 Haverhill Street project, that we have both an order of conditions as well as a stormwater management permit, plus because of the size of the disturbance they needed an EPA NEPDS permit that results in them having to file a stormwater pollution prevention plan for their project site. So most all things such as dust control, sweeping, appropriate stabilization, handling any mitigation of any clouds of dust that they may generate by handling soils or whatever. I did advise the Board of Selectmen that they probably would want to inquire about what the route was for the trucks leaving the site and where the intended destination of those materials might be. Not that that's in the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction, but that might very well be under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen, and our town planner, Kurt Baker, had sort of the same comments to the Board of Selectmen.
We never did find any unnatural debris at that site, correct?
No, there was just all surface stuff,
Cement.
and no, when they did the wetlands replication, no. It was, again, chunks of asphalt and chunks of concrete
Road
blick.
debris, just
Well,
when they
there were
widened
some busted concrete blocks and stuff, so there was, but solid
Yep.
construction and demolition debris, no hazardous materials. No
Right.
hazardous materials, no liquid, no indications of any type of staining or rusted drums that had oily substances in them, none of those things that would get you excited.
So have you been in there on the wetlands, you know, that extra area that they're gonna have to add? Have you had to inspect that yet, or when do you?
Well, yeah, I visually,
You've been going in,
I
I just wondered if
visually
there's
looked
time-
at it.
Do you have timelines that they tell you about when you come in and make sure that they're doing it right?
Well, what we have done is we consulted on it, and because of the drought conditions, we've put off actually planting anything, but it has been hydroseeded, and a
Yeah, I
wetland
saw it.
seed mix, a herbaceous seed mix has been put in there. Some of that is starting to actually take with a little bit of rain we've got. But the decision was made not to actually put planting stock, any container stock in there, because there hasn't been enough moisture to go down in the ground. The soil, you just go down an inch, the soil is still all powdery, dry. There's no moisture at all.
Okay, I just wondered.
Yeah, so no, and they had been filing a weekly report with this office.
The reason I bring up, my granddaughter asked me, in the Conservation Committee around Grampy, were you involved with this? Yeah, so I drove over there to show her, you know, what we do and why. It's a good example.
So the last thing,
Mosquito?
yeah, request, excuse me, I'm not sure where it went. The commission may recall that they had a request to determine applicability that was applied for by the National Fish and Wildlife Service, the Plum Island Refuge folks for herbicide application to treat Phragmites, specifically centered off of Mr. Page's property off of Redgate Road. They don't believe, and I don't believe, they had a conversation with us that the application of the herbicide would be followed up by a mowing in the fall that would be done by the Northeast Mosquito Control and Wetlands Management District here in Essex County. So they contacted me yesterday, and they submitted a narrative just discussing it, and I seem to have not brought it into here, even though I meant to. Basically, they just wanted to assure the commission that, number one, they have the appropriate equipment to do that, and that even though mowing wasn't discussed, that mowing is a normal follow-up. With the herbicide application, they get anywhere from 90 to 95% success in knocking the Phragmites down. But in order to take care of that residual, what they do is they go in and mow it, and that releases the native vegetation so that it can come up and not have
Squeeze
to
out the
compete with the Phragmites. Australia's, is it Phragmites Australis?
Yeah.
I think that's there.
Horriblest. Horriblest.
And they actually do have the statutory authority to go do that. They really don't have to submit any application to us, nor do they technically need to. But as a professional courtesy, they wanted to talk to us, and they wished me to inform the commission and make sure that you were comfortable. Again, just as with the application of the herbicide, they have the type of low impact equipment that is able to move across the marsh without compacting it or making tire ruts or anything else like that. I don't know if it's the same 1 pound per pressure.
It's a little bit different for the mower,
but it's
yeah,
basically the
the
same.
one for the sprayer is under a pound.
Yeah.
It actually floats. They went across the river in front of my house. Yeah, I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, you do it.
Yeah. But, no, they've had, I'd say, over 98% success. And they're actually expanding it out there. Because they were all excited because we hayed this year. So they love that, 'cause that
Wanna do
helps.
it, they
Yeah,
cut it back.
yeah. So, but those guys are very, very good guys.
So
Is that the meeting?
that's the meeting. Just want to check so you don't have any concerns, and I can content that back and thank them for the courtesy of informing us. And
I didn't know they hadn't contacted you. I think I contacted you and said they started mowing. They usually try to do that late fall or winter,
Yeah.
because the marsh is better in the winter.
well, like I said, they just called me yesterday, so I haven't even had an opportunity to even go back and pull the old file and see whether it did say anything about that in it. But it's, again, they assured me that this is, a normal follow-up activity, and that it's actually beneficial to the native salt marsh vegetation. So-
Definitely, definitely.
Do they collect the residue?
No.
It just
Once it-
falls down and the
That,
native.
if you just kill the Phragmites, they'll stay there for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah,
And they shade everything else out so nothing can come back. And by 4 or 5 years, if you've left it there, a new Phragmite will come up somehow, somewhere. So what they do is they shred it. But
It's like
at
mulching.
the time that they shred it, there is no fluff, there is no seeds, there is no nothing. It's just dead standing stalks. So.
cramp. Yeah,
All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Watch that debate.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.